Good morning, comic book fans. Welcome back to Comics in 5 Minutes. I'm your host, Shorty. And today we're going to review Poison Ivy issue 1. And I'm not going to lie, I kind of was going to ignore this one, but I saw that cover, and it is a variant, but it's absolutely beautiful. And I thought, I'm going to read that and see what's going on there. And I did, and I read it, and it's good. But we're going to talk a little bit about some terminology first. Because I think it's going to be quite easy for somebody reading this to think eco-fascism instead of eco-terrorism, and I think it's worth people knowing the difference between those. Eco-terrorism is active terrorism done where they aim to either promote environmental issues or to stop environmental damage. Eco-fascism is when people say that the wrong people shouldn't come to their country and use their resources because it's our country and the wrong people shouldn't be in here. Very different things. Pamela Isley, or Ivy, this one is basically not the second one, she's the first one. And she's a pretty intense one at that. In fact, it's worth also pointing out that this is the story of an actual villain. Yes, she may not be racist and care about people coming from other countries. She doesn't care about that. She's a one world eco-terrorist, or one nation eco-terrorist, but she is still a villain. It's worth pointing out because there is a few times, I think, particularly in Marvel cinematic universe properties at the moment, where there is a fairly solid complaint about the fact that a lot of groups or individuals which may or may not have actual real world concerns and actually want to do changes for the good, often also do terrible things just to make sure that the people watching it at home or in the cinemas know that these are bad guys. Now, I don't know if that's lazy hackneyed writing or if it's top-down control from a corporation, but it's a complaint I've seen repeatedly, and it can be a little bit frustrating when you think these people actually have a valid complaint. Pamela Isley is an actual eco-terrorist. She is a villain, though. She is not just doing this because she thinks the world will be slightly better and it will give humanity a chance to survive along this planet. She basically thinks humanity doesn't deserve to be on this planet. It is an absolute fundamental fact that she just wants everybody to die, including herself, which is fair enough. Her motivations have changed recently, though. In the original comic books and from what I remember of the animated series and various things like that, she basically just didn't like the idea that plants were mistreated by humanity. She didn't really have as much of a problem with other animals. It was the virus of humanity. But in this one, she's even basically wiping out other species because they're brought in by humanity. She sees it far more as an all-encompassing issue. She even refers to civilization as being the virus, whereas actually not having a problem with individual human beings, but as a collective group, we do an awful lot of damage. Can't really deny that one too much. And in this one, she also has an additional motivation of, in recent Batman stories, when she became all-powerful Avatar of the Green, or very close to being an Avatar of the Green, she has now lost that, and she's been separated from it, and as such doesn't have the same levels of power or control she wanted to. It has led to her breaking up with Harley, because Harley tried to save her from being this individual, and Ivy saw that as an attack on her and actually reducing her to something that she wasn't comfortable with, which is a reasonably fair enough thing to take out on a partner. But in terms of the comic book, it's also effectively saying, I used to be a god, I don't like not being a god anymore, and now I'm going to murder everyone to make up for that. And that's pretty harsh. You can agree on that one. But it's interesting. It's well written. The character motivations come through perfectly clear and cogent in her own head as she's describing it. I think if they'd have come across as just hackneyed and villainous, it would have been a far less entertaining read, and it'd been far easier to dismiss her. As it is, you find yourself having to put yourself in her shoes and figure out, would you have done the same thing? Can we say we will be innocent of doing such things if we were in the same situation? And I don't know entirely. The writing in it is brilliant for doing that. It takes a clear villain and actually makes them interesting, not just because of the fact that they're doing villainous things in interesting and flamboyant ways, but also the motivations behind it. Absolutely brilliant. Art-wise, it's fantastic as well. It is a bit more simple than I was expecting from a DC comic, but I actually really quite like that. It's a little bit more scratchy. It's got a bit more of a lo-fi vibe to it, which is fantastic. And unusually, I'm going to say the colouring will be slightly washed out, which sometimes is something that turns me off a little bit in comic books. In this one, it works really quite effectively because there are times it isn't. There are times it is big and bold and huge, but those times matter. For the rest, it is washed out. It does look as if you're seeing it through a bit of a haze, which makes perfect sense because Ivy is seeing the world in a different way at the moment. She doesn't have that connection to the world that she used to. Even her hair, for a lot of the time, looks, instead of the bright vermilion red that I'm used to seeing, it looks faded and washed, like she dyed it a while ago and hasn't done anything with it. I mean, if you look at the cover here, that over-the-top bright red is exactly what we would expect But later on, although it is still certainly red, you can see the splash of it, it doesn't look anywhere near as vibrant or intense. This is clearly done on purpose to show that she is not the person she used to be. Even the way she handles herself, the way she talks to people, there is a distinct difference in who the character was compared to who she is now. And I think that is brilliantly done. The artwork supports it, the writing supports it. All in all, this is a fairly solid, complex, and complete story just with issue 1. And it leaves you with more to go as well. All in all, I'm absolutely satisfied by this, and I think you should read it. I think it's genuinely great. That's it for me for now. I'm going to hopefully do an extra review before I go home today, because I'm going to go watch the rugby later. Come on, you Giants. And I'm going to have some time between the shop closing and me going to the match, so I'll get at least one more done then. Until then, though, look after each other, everyone. Stay safe. Bye.